Hallo, ek is Edie. Welkom by my kanaal waar ons als saam doen. In this video, I teach you what the Afrikaans words are for the English word assume. There is also a little bonus a bit later in the video. We take a look at assume in all of its forms. And I can't stress this enough. The word omskryf, which means paraphrase in Afrikaans. When it comes to a word like assume, you have to do a lot of paraphrasing in many of these translations. It is one of those words where when you find it in the English language, there are probably multiple words or sentences in Afrikaans that you can translate to. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Some of the times, yes. Most of the time, no. So please remember that assume is one of those words, and it's definitely not the only one. You have to learn the paraphrasing ways to express yourself in Afrikaans. Assume, assuming, or assumed. The definition as per the online Cambridge Dictionary is as follows: to accept something to be true without question or proof. That is the definition of assume that we're looking at in this clip. The Afrikaans word is aanneem or neem aan. This one is more simple. It actually has a translation that's, I won't say 100% rigid, but it has a very solid translation, which is aanneem or neem aan. Let's look at the examples. Ek neem aan, jy verstaan wat jy moet doen. I assume you understand what you must do. Ek neem so aan. I assume so. Ek het aangeneem, julle ken mekaar, want julle het na dieselfde skool gegaan. I assumed you knew each other, because you went to the same school. Kom ons neem aan, hulle is op pad. Let's assume they're on their way. Ek dink, jy neem te veel aan. Let's say that again. Ek dink, jy neem te veel aan. I think you are assuming too much. For the next one, the translation still remains aanneem or neem aan. And now the definition as per the Cambridge Online Dictionary is as follows: to pretend to have a different name or be someone you are not, or to express a feeling falsely. So that's just the definition more or less of the assume we're looking at now. Hy het 'n nuwe identiteit aangeneem. He assumed a new identity. Om iemand anders se identiteit aan te neem. So there we have the infinitive om aan te neem. To assume someone else's identity. Before we dive into a little bit more complex terrain, let's look at that bonus I promised you. That bonus is the English word adopt, also adopting and adopted. That is translated to aanneem and neem aan as well, and exclusively. So I thought it's very important to me that when I teach you the word aanneem to mean assume, you should also know that it is most certainly the word for adopt as well. Right, so the definition as per me, at the top right, is adopting a child or adopting a new way of being or doing. So that's more or less encompass the situation. Hulle het 'n baba aangeneem. They adopted a baby. Hy het 'n kan nie minder omgee houding aangeneem. He adopted a couldn't care less attitude. Hulle het 'n ander benadering aangeneem. They adopted a different approach. Omskryf, omskryf, omskryf. Paraphrase. Remember, we look at the definition of assume as per the Cambridge Online Dictionary to be the following: to take or begin to have responsibility or control, sometimes without the right to do so, or to begin to have a characteristic. So this is assume in the sense of taking over, or assuming, taking responsibility, taking on a position, taking over control. It's that kind of assume. And in the English language, you use assume control, assume the position, assume risk. You use that word. In Afrikaans, we don't have an exclusive translation for assume. The word aanneem only apply in some of these cases, and it definitely does not apply in all of them, as I will show you shortly. Some of them cannot be translated to aanneem or neem aan. Then it doesn't work anymore. So this is way more confusing, and what you will do is omskryf. You will certainly definitely paraphrase, and there are quite a few ways in which you can translate. So it's not the end of the world if you choose the one above the other. And some can be translated to aanneem. So let's take a look. Neem beheer oor or neem beheer. Strictly translated, neem beheer oor will be take over control, and neem beheer will be take control. So if you are going to strictly translate from Afrikaans to English, that'll be the way you do it. But if you have a sentence where it's assume control, your closest translation will be neem beheer or neem beheer oor. There is no neem aan beheer of aanneem beheer. Aanneem or neem aan cannot be used in this translation. This next one is a little bit tricky. Even to me, I still go like, now, am I now correct about this? It is one of those things where you can say this in more than one way. So let's take a look at the original English, which is assume responsibility. Now, it can be translated to three things, some of which have different translations if you translate back to English from Afrikaans. So assume responsibility. The first option that you can use is aanvaar verantwoordelikheid. That, when you translate from Afrikaans to English, that'll be accept responsibility. Your next option is neem verantwoordelikheid, which, if you translate from Afrikaans to English, is take responsibility. The last one there is neem die verantwoordelikheid aan. So it's neem aan or aanneem. That is the word that we looked at in the beginning for assume. But if you use it in this context, you have to use die. So it's neem die verantwoordelikheid aan. You can't say neem verantwoordelikheid aan. That's not going to work. So die must be in there for you to use it in that way. You can use any of those. They are all seen as synonyms in more or less of a way. People will still understand what you're saying. So again, it's your choice, which one you feel comfortable using. Assume the position. The best translation, if you want to stick close to the English meaning and feeling, is neem die posisie in. So now we have neem in or inneem as a verb and not aanneem or neem aan. So inneem also has a whole host of meanings, which we will look at in a different video. But for assume the position, it will be neem die posisie in. The last one, assume the risk, which is translated to neem die risiko aan. Of course, assume is also a conjunction in some sentences. And before we look at how to use assume in Afrikaans as a conjunction, we are going to look at sentences that do have the Afrikaans word aanneem in them or neem aan, but it's not the conjunction in these conditional sentences. These ones have a different conjunction. The word aanneem is just in the sentence. Ek het aangeneem. Hy kom. So ek was verbaas toe hy nie opdaag nie. I assumed he was coming, so I was surprised when he didn't show up. As hulle aanneem dat hulle daarmee kan wegkom, is hulle verkeerd. If they assume they can get away with it, they are mistaken. Assuming as a conjunction. The translation in Afrikaans, again, is very much omskryf, omskryf, omskryf. You have to paraphrase. I'm going to give you some of the words that you can use when you translate, but these are not the only ones. I'm sure there are ones that I haven't added. I think these are the closest translation in many of these cases. So we look at the word gestel, which can mean suppose or supposing, that we've looked at in the previous video. It can also be translated to mean assume or assuming. So these things are synonyms in some cases, and they are not exclusive. But I think suppose and supposedly and all those things were a little bit more translate to this or that, where assume is, when you translate to Afrikaans, it's way more open. There's also say no, which its translation would be say da 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 da, say no, which is say now, literal translation. As, that is if, and mits, which its strict translation would be provided or provided that. All of these can also be used to mean assuming in some cases. Sentence examples. Now, can I just preface this by saying that I'm still confused. I'm still uncertain about some of these things. Some people might translate it a little bit differently. Some of my word order might not in all cases, but in some of these cases, I will point them out to you, where my word order might not be what somebody else will translate it to. That being said, all of these translations do make perfect sense, and you will be 100% understood should you use them this way. All right. The first one there, gestel, which we all now know is suppose or supposing. And then we have say no, which is say. So gestel or say no, ons het meer tyd gehad. So you'll see the first one, gestel, is suppose we had more time. The next one, say no, is say we had more time. But then the sentence that you'll have in English is assuming we had more time. And then you will translate to either one of those above. There is no neem aan, ons het meer tyd. So neem aan does not feature in this translation, right? The only thing that features are the two above, which you can choose from gestel or say no, and their strict translations are suppose and say. The next one messed with my head, and I'm still not 100% sure about some of the translations, whether this is like the best way to do it, but I can't think of others, so here we are. The English sentence, we are going to Paris next year, assuming we have the money, right? Your first option there, ons gaan volgende jaar Parijs toe, as ons die geld het. That, when you translate from Afrikaans to English, would be, we are going to Paris next year if we have the money. Right, next one. Ons gaan volgende jaar Parijs toe, dis nou as ons die geld het. So we are going to Paris next year. That is if we have the money. So that is what you have there. And the last one, ons gaan volgende jaar Parijs toe. Dis nou te sê, ons het die geld. That one would be, we are going to Paris next year. That's to say, we have the money. So those are, I think, the best options. You can use any of those. But again, there is no, neeming aan. We don't speak that way. Also, it doesn't exist. So neem aan and aanneem does not oh my word, feature. Help me. So it doesn't feature in the conjunction. If it's a conjunction, neem aan and aanneem is not a conjunction. It won't be used. Not those words. Assuming the weather cooperates, we'll have a picnic in the park. Your two options for translation are mits, which means provided or provided that, or if, which is translated to us. So we have mits or as die weer saamwerk, sal ons 'n piknik in die park hou. So then we have the other way around when the conjunction is in the middle of the sentence. Ons sal 'n piknik in die park hou, mits of as die weer saamwerk. And that is still translated to, we'll have a picnic in the park, assuming the weather cooperates. The last one is straightforward assumption, which is anname. And it cannot be said the other way around, so it's just anname. Mense is geneig om aannames oor jou te maak wanneer jy arm is. People tend to make assumptions about you when you are poor. Hierdie berekeninge is gebaseer op die aanname dat pryse sal aanhou styg. These calculations are based on the assumption that prices will continue to rise. Moenie besluite neem gebaseer op aannames nie. Don't make decisions based on assumptions. That was assume for you. If you have any more questions about assume or aanneem or neem aan, please let me know in the comment section. If you have words like these, English words, that you want me to make similar videos about, where I show you how to use that particular word in Afrikaans and all of the ways that you can use that word, also let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, have an awesome day. I'll see you in the next video.